compared to them, I'm very privileged because I literally grew up in an apartment that had running water, that had heat. If they gave this to me so easily, what else is out there for me to also, have? Because there are people out there making $500K and they're younger than us. It's not selfish to be ambitious. Doesn't make you a bad person to want more. And why not? Why not you? If I could do this, if I literally manifested my 100K job, I could do anything. Like, this is just the beginning.
Hey there, welcome to First Gen Fridays, a limited series by Doce Podcast, highlighting first-generation Americans. My guest today is your favorite daughter of immigrants and the founder of Overgen Pop. Please welcome Viviana Vazquez. Why does the work that you do matter?
Wow, that's such a great question. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me again. I am so happy to be here. And since the first podcast we ever recorded, we've become such great friends. And the work that I do, I believe, matters because, one, representation. I think when I started my wealth building journey, I didn't see a lot of Latinas that came from backgrounds like me, like mine, specifically first generation, low income. And I think that was a little bit defeating at first because I was like, is this even possible for me? Like, is it possible for me to retire my parents, to buy them the house that I promised them when I was a child, to make 100K? Like, does that exist for somebody like me, somebody that looks like me? And, I was like, let me start documenting my journey because if I do get there, I want people to see that it is possible. So first and foremost, I think it's representation, like showing little Vivs and girls like us, maybe when we were 15, 16, 17, still figuring out, what do I want to do with my life? I want to show them that there's so many options, a lot more than maybe we're told by our parents or by our family, and that we deserve to be in those spaces as well. We deserve to make six figures as well, and we deserve to build wealth the way that we want to, whatever that looks like for us. For some people, it's making a lot of money. For some people, it's driving a really nice car. For some people, it's just traveling whenever they want to travel. So that's the first part. And then the second part is financial literacy is so important to me because it changed my life. And I wanted to help other people the same way that it did for me, starting with budgeting and then ending with, investing and career opportunities ultimately that can help you get ahead in life and basically build the life that you dreamt of as a kid.
Wow, there's so much I could say about this. And I feel like just knowing you, I even have those conversations with myself that I'm like, can I get to 100K? And then I'm like, wait, I literally know Viv, like she's a real person and she did it from the ground up. No trust fund, just a lot of hard work and also strategy and having the right tools, maybe not all at once. So we don't even have to go that far to say that, honestly, you inspire me. And I think about you like, yeah, it is possible. So
oh, thank you. That's so sweet.
So I want to talk about specifically what is the biggest difference between being a first generation and being an immigrant for the people who maybe don't understand that differentiation, and maybe there's some overlaps, but what makes it different?
This term, first gen, can welcome a lot of people. In popular terms, first gen is usually referred to people that are the first in their families to go to college and graduate with a degree. So that's maybe the more popular definition. My experience is very different. I, grew up in New York City. I was a U.S. citizen because I was born here. And that gave me a lot of privileges in life. So one of the things that I was able to do was go to public school in New York City, take advantage of all the, free resourcing that I had here. And compared to my parents, my parents basically had to leave Mexico because it was too dangerous and they were living in poverty. And my mom had to come and work here to support her family back home. My dad, same thing. So they didn't really have a choice in what they could do here the way that I did. They came here to work, to make money, and to provide for their families. And then, when they had us, then their responsibility was then to get their children ahead in life. And so I always say my parents gave me the best gift that they could ever give me was like having this life where I could choose. I could choose what I want to study. I could choose where I want to go to school. And now that I'm an adult and working and taking my own responsibility for myself, I ultimately get to choose what I want to do with my life. And I think that's such a great privilege that they unfortunately don't have and didn't have when they came here.
I mean, I love that you use the word privilege so much. And I find that fascinating because I know your story from like knowing you and seeing your content, engaging with your content, and you grew up low income. And I don't think those are two words that you often associate with each other, like privilege and low income. What do you think about that?
People always comment on social media whenever I say that I grew up privileged. They are like, no, but you worked really hard for what you have and you grew up low income. So, there are other people that actually have privilege. And to me, I look at my past generations. I look at where my grandparents live, how my parents were raised. And compared to them, I'm very privileged because I literally grew up in an apartment that had running water, that had heat, that we had a gas stove. Like all those things my parents never had in Mexico. And I'm so privileged because of those basic things that maybe to the average person, these are, basic needs that everyone gets. But in reality, in some of our home countries, they're not. Yeah, they're not basic.
Those are like basic needs that are met in a first world country. And I would even dare to say that there's some parts of the U.S. that maybe that's not the case. Yeah. So that's, I think that's something very beautiful about knowing where you come from and knowing where your family comes from, having that like more worldview of, wait, actually, this is not the standard of the world, which it should be, but it's not. Mm-hmm. Well, I wanted to ask you about your journey in college. You were the first one in your family to go to college. What did that and finish college? What did that accomplishment mean to you?
It was the best moment of my life when I graduated because I was the first person in my family on both sides, on my mom's side and on my dad's side, to attend a college and then ultimately graduate from a college in the U.S. And I was so proud of myself because this is what my parents have dreamt of. This is their American dream. Their American dream is seeing their children get the education that they never had. And unfortunately, like my dad never got to finish middle school in his country because he had to work. So, the fact that I was able to even get into a school, graduate, and have a degree and say I'm a college graduate, that is definitely one of the proudest moments of my life. And I think for my family, it was a moment that represented everything that they gave up in Mexico to come to the U.S. for.
That's what made it all worth it. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's huge. So I want to ask you about the transition of your career and your income. So that's what you have built your platform on, about personal finances and financial literacy. Like, can you give us a rundown of your different careers and the different incomes that you've acquired? And I think most importantly, How did you get there? How did you build the confidence to ask for more and value yourself properly?
Honestly, I think it was all through learning, trial and error, seeing what other people are doing. So my first job out of college was me as a teacher, and I was making $57,000. And I was also going to grad school, so I was paying for my grad school. And at the same time, I was helping my family. I was paying for my student loans, paying for my credit card debt, and it was really hard. That was when I realized, oh wow, $57,000 is not a lot of money, and I was still living at home. But when I received that letter that I was going to get paid $57,000, I thought that I was rich. I thought I had made it. It was almost double of my dad's salary, so I was extremely grateful. But shortly after I started teaching, I knew that it wasn't for me because I was dreading going into work every day. And I just felt uneasy waking up. I was not excited to go to work. I had a lot of mental health issues at the time that also I think didn't help, kind of made the situation worse in a way. And I was like, there has to be another way. There has to be something else that I could do. And so I started doing my research. I started, applying to jobs. And thankfully, I found a nonprofit job. So I actually took a pay cut to join this nonprofit, and it was an immigration nonprofit role. And I took a pay cut, and after 2 years, I left teaching, joined that nonprofit, and I started making $50,000 a year. And
that's crazy to take a pay cut at 57.
From 57 to 50K.
Yeah.
I thought that this job was going to allow me to give back to the community, because as a teacher, I was giving back to the immigrant community. I was teaching immigrants. And in this new job, I was still giving back to the community, just in a different way, through legal resourcing. And the benefits were good. It was a stable job. The nonprofit was like a nationally recognized nonprofit. So I was like, okay, this could be a good career move. Like, I could go to law school after this. When I got there, I was surrounded by people that were also getting paid low, but they actually had family. They had family that was helping offset some of their living expenses, or they had a partner that was making a ton more money than they were. And so I was like, wow, we're working at the same place, but we're not the same, because you're living an amazing lifestyle and I'm over here struggling.
They get to live an amazing lifestyle and fulfill their purpose.
Yeah.
But you had to pick one or the other.
Yeah, I had to pick one or the other. And, I tried teaching, and obviously it wasn't a fit for me. I tried nonprofit, legal, immigration, and as much as I was helping people, I was not helping myself. I was not prioritizing myself, my finances, my mental well-being. And so that's when I decided, okay, it's not selfish of me to leave jobs that are, quote unquote, ethical, giving back type of jobs. It's okay for me to help my community in other ways. If I join a company, like a big corporation, maybe I'm not helping my community, but if I make enough money, I can then donate to my church and donate to my family and give back to the causes I care about in a different way.
Yeah.
So it took me a long time to, get out of that mentality of oh, if I don't work in these type of jobs, I'm not a good person.
Was that something instilled in you? Where did that come from?
Yeah, I think it came from the mentality that I had growing up. I saw my parents struggle a lot, and I always wanted to just help people. I wanted to give back because I knew how hard it was out there. And so, yeah, I wanted to be essentially like the teacher that I never had, or the immigration lawyer that actually understood where, immigrants are coming from. And so that's why I kind of wanted to put myself in those positions. But it just didn't make sense for me at the time, financially, mentally. It was a lot to juggle. And so that's when I decided, okay, let me look at other career paths that could potentially be a fit for me, where I could have a really good work-life balance, mental health balance, and still get back to my community in other ways. And that's when I started Overgym Poverty. That's when I started like networking and seeing what career paths were out there in tech. And that's when I made my move to my first tech job, which was a curriculum writer position at a startup. And this was a contract role. And they were paying me $57,000 as a contractor. So I went from $57K to $50K to $57K.
And at this point, how many years out of college were you?
This was 3 years out of college.
Okay. So we're back to where you started.
Yeah.
Salary-wise.
Back to where I started, back to the beginning, I guess, of a new career path. Because at this point, teaching, nonprofit. This was my third try, so tech. And that job was crazy because I worked a lot, and I told myself it was only going to be temporary. I was going to, go all in and work really hard and move my way up quickly, because in tech, that's what happens. In startup world, you are able to move up quickly because there's more opportunities. And if you prove yourself and make a name for yourself, you could, especially at smaller, fast-growing startups, you can be promoted quickly and get raises and just be valued. So that was my plan going into it. And that's what I did. I ended up performing really well. I got a raise to $65K. They promoted me to like head of content. It was I was doing so many things. And then from there, when I realized, okay, I'm getting overworked. I have experience already. I have the title that I want, but I don't have the pay. And I even told my fiance at the time, I said, I'm going to make $100K. My next job is going to pay me $100K. And he was like, okay.
I didn't believe it.
Like,
How you were looking
relax.
at you.
Hold your horses. And I was like, no, it's possible. I've seen people make this kind of money. Like
made that kind of jump?
Not the jump, but I would see salary ranges. I would see job descriptions, and I would see the pay range. I would see people online that had 3-4 years of experience and were making 6 figures. And I was like, you know what? I was telling Javi, I was like, if they can do it, why can't I do it? I'm just as smart. I'm just as talented. I'm very hardworking.
You are very hardworking.
And, what's the difference between them and us? And he was like, okay, yeah, like, I guess continue to apply, see what happens. And that's what happened. My next job was a 100K base. That was the first time that I had negotiated anything. They offered me 90K. I told them, well, I have 2 other offers, and
And did you have 2 other offers?
I did not. But I was like, I have 2 other offers. They're 6-figure salaries, and they have equity and they have bonus and this and that. And they ended up giving me an amazing compensation package, 100K base, 10% bonus annually, and $47,000 in equity vesting over 4 years.
Wow. How did you feel when you got the offer?
Part of me couldn't believe it. That was also like probably one of the most proud I've ever been of myself, because I was like, I said I was going to do it, and I did it. And even if I doubted myself a little bit, because, imposter syndrome, and you're like, you say things, but you don't actually like 100% believe them. But after I did that, I was like, okay, if I could do this, if I literally manifested my 100K job, I could do anything. Like, this is just the beginning, and at the time, right, Javi was like, now you can chill. Like, you made it. And I was like, no, I did not make it yet.
I can never chill.
I made it to where I said I was going to make it. But I know if they gave this to me so easily, what else is out there for me to also, have? Because there are people out there making 500K, and they're younger than us.
Wow, let that sink in for a minute.
So it's like, we're smart, we're talented, we're driven, we're hardworking. We deserve to have those opportunities too. Why? How come we've never seen them?
How come we've never seen them?
That's why I'm like, presentation matters, because now if somebody sees my story online and they're like, oh wow, Viv is making 180K or 200K a year, I want to tell them, aim for higher. Like, I wish I knew what I knew earlier. You being younger than me, and like people out there listening that are younger than me, aim for higher always. Like, you guys can be better than me. Like, don't think, oh, I want to get to where Viv is at. No, think, I want to get like double that.
Wow.
Because it's possible.
That's a powerful mentality. And if you can give us a little bit of the tricks of the trade, like, okay, you went from 65K to 100K. It was in tech. And we know tech is like, I think tech is known today to be like one of the more lucrative industries. What would you say also positioned you to make that ask? Because I like, even listening to this story, and I've heard it a few times, I'm like, I don't know what I would say.
Yeah, so I prepared myself really well. So there's 3 things that I did. The first thing was networking, right? And I think people are scared to do this a lot, but it's actually not that scary once you start putting yourself out there, practicing. You know, the first time is not going to be perfect. You're probably going to mess up. I look back and I'm like, I can't believe I did that. Like, I remember telling one of my friends that I met on Instagram, I was like, hey, I'm looking for a job. Do you mind sending me jobs that you think are a good fit for me from your company?
Oh, wow.
Like, ideally, you would, well, I don't know. Back then, I thought like that was normal. But now looking back, I'm like embarrassed, because I'm like, I can't believe I asked her, one, to basically do my job for me. Because if somebody's helping you, if somebody's offering to help you, they're probably busy. You know, they're already where you want to be. You're supposed to make their life easier, not harder. So if you're asking for help, come prepared, you know, do your research ahead of time. I should have gone in and said, hey, Carla, whatever her name was. Hey, Carla, can you, do you have 15 minutes of your time? I'd love to chat with you about some roles that I already saw that I think I'm a good fit for at your company. I just want to get your perspective and see, you know, from somebody who's worked there, if you agree with me or not. And if not, maybe we could talk through like a few other roles that maybe I could be a good fit for, right? Like, that would be a better way to approach it, to frame it, to tackle that, you know, networking experience that I had, but I didn't know at the time. So That's why now I share my story, because I'm like, you guys need to learn from my mistakes and network better than I did when I first started networking. But yeah, that was one of the huge mistakes I made. After I started networking a little bit more, I started learning to be a better networker. And like I said before, come prepared, ask questions. If somebody is giving you the time of day, make their life easier, not harder. Be appreciative. And so that's how I got my 100K tech job. Was I went on Facebook. I was in this group, like Women in Tech, and I saw somebody had posted, hey, we're hiring at my company. Like, we're growing like crazy. Come join us. They were a fintech company, which was in the industry that I was already working in. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. This is the same industry that I work in. And I looked at the roles and I saw they were hiring for a educational content manager role. And I was like, this is exactly what I do already.
It's so crazy. It's like the exact right fit.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I really need to make a good impression on her. So I looked at the comments and everybody was just like, interested. Oh, this is so cool. I'm interested. You know, like, same thing. And I was like, I need to write something that makes me stand out, because everybody else here is like not even trying. And I want to show her that I'm different and I'm special, and that she should basically look at my comment and be like, wow, we need to hire this person. So I did some research on the company. I crafted a really, really nice message, a really nice comment. And I was like, hi, Jackie, I really appreciate you sharing this. Thank you so much for, you know, sharing these opportunities with all of us. I'm really grateful. Just to give you a little bit of background on me, I've worked in the fintech space for 2 years now. I rounded up because it was only like a year and a half, but I was like, I worked in the...
Always round up, guys.
Always round up. I was like, I've worked in the fintech space for 2 years now, and I worked on all these projects. I think it aligns really well with what you're looking for the educational content manager role. I'm happy to send you my resume. I'm happy to send you my cover letter. Please let me know if there's anything else you need from me, but I'd love to chat with you 15 minutes if you have the time. And she responded to only me in that entire Facebook comment thread, because I actually took the time to craft something that gave her the impression that I actually really cared.
Yeah. And honestly, that's really, really smart of you, because I've seen Facebook groups like that for like freelance jobs, and people always say interested. And so I always write interested because I'm like, oh, this is what we do. But the fact that you were like, I'm going to think outside the box, which is something that we just need to do more often.
Yeah, because you could be interested, and so is the next person. Like, we're all interested. It's just, like I said, you have to make sure that the first impression is basically a representation of how you're going to work, how you're going to be as an employee, how you're going to be as a friend. Like, because her and I became friends after that. She ended up referring me to the job, and she also helped me with the interview process. Because
that's amazing.
Yeah, because I, came prepared with questions. I asked her about herself, all these things. I even asked her about salary, because there was no salary range. And I didn't know if I was aiming too high with the 100K, but she gave me some really good advice. She was like, go on Glassdoor, go on Built-in, and look at the salary range for that position, that title. Look for content manager or like content marketing manager role salaries. And it's competitive here. So aim for the higher end of that. And I'm pretty sure I probably could have asked for more, but
Oh, there was no salary range. That's very interesting. I thought that was a law in New York.
This was in Georgia. This role, the company is based in Georgia.
Okay.
This was when I was still in Atlanta at the time. So salary was not on the job listing, and I was in the middle of moving to New York. So I think I could have asked for more, but I was like, you know what? 100K, I'd be so happy. So they ended up offering me 90K, and I negotiated to 100K. And yeah, it was because of her. It was because of that connection that I made and the good impression that I left on her, that she helped me and referred me and also helped me through the interview process. And that ended up really, really helping me get the job.
You have to give yourself so much credit for everything that you did up until the point where you spoke with her, you guys became friends, which is like even more amazing. Maybe that's just a common thread with you. But also I think it's so important to give the flowers to those types of people that are advocates for you and that want to help you, because sometimes you encounter them, sometimes you don't. So that's really amazing that you did.
Yeah. And I think people like to help other people that are similar to them. So typically, like this person who helped me, she is extremely hardworking. She is involved in so many other things. She does content on the side. Like, she is killing it. She's an author. And I think that she saw how hardworking, or how much research and how much time I put into just crafting that one message, that she was like, wow, this person reminds me of me, right? Because I would approach it similarly. So I want to help her because, yeah, they want to help people that see similarities in you or potential in you, want to open the doors for you so that you could get to where they are.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you, so obviously you have surpassed the 100K and you're well into the six figures, but I also want to talk to you about the topic of debt. What has been your relationship with debt and student debt specifically? Because I have friends now who are starting their first jobs and they're making 65K a year, but they're also 60K in debt. So it's just that kind of thought process of like, when am I gonna pay this off if my student loans are like my year's salary?
the number one thing that I've done, that I've always followed, thankfully, well, maybe not in the beginning, but when I started my financial journey, was I started living below my means. So what that means is if you make 65K, or let's just say 70K, if you make 70K a year, that you make sure that you're only spending 70K after taxes, I will say, right? Like, let's say you bring home 70K, that's after taxes, after all your deductions. You only spend 50K of that, right? Because a lot of people, me included, when I started making my salary, I was like, oh, I'm rich now. I can go shop whenever I want. You know, I'm making my own money. I can go out to eat with friends. And I was living a lifestyle that matched more like a 70K or 75K lifestyle. And so going back to the debt question, I graduated with maybe like 15K in student debt and like 15K in credit card debt. Like,
Oh
I
my
was in a
gosh.
lot of credit card debt. I had a personal loan. Like, I have done it all. Okay. When it comes to finances, like, people are surprised because they're like, wait, you also had debt? Wait, you also, yeah, I had.
I mean, you didn't even start in zero. You started in negative.
I started negative. That's what I tell people all the time. I'm like, a lot of us started negative. You know, a lot of us, especially if you don't come from wealthy parents, if your family has never supported you financially and you've had to work for as long as you remember, you're most likely starting at negative. So I started, with a lot of debt, and I actually worked 2 jobs at the same time to be able to speed up the debt payoff process.
Wow.
So during COVID, I was a teacher, and I also worked at the Legal Aid Society. I worked both those jobs at the same time because it was COVID, was remote. And with teaching, thankfully teaching was a little bit more flexible because we only had to teach online classes for like 3 hours out of the day, and the rest was like more admin work. So I was really hustling in 2020 to pay off my debt. And I think the combination of everybody being home, nothing being opened, obviously that helped me not spend my money. I put all of that towards debt payoff, but I still had debt even up to 2022 when I got my first 100K job. So a lot of people, what happens is, you know, they start getting paid more. They get a salary increase, or they get a promotion, or they switch jobs and they start making a lot more money. They get affected by something called lifestyle creep or lifestyle inflation.
I've heard of that, yes.
And what that means is just like, because you're making more money, now you think that you have to spend more money. Now you think that you're allowed to spend more money. You're like, oh, I'm making 6 figures now. I deserve to drive a nicer car. So I'm going to upgrade my car. I'm going to upgrade my cell phone to the new iPhone. I'm going to take myself on like spa dates every month or every 2 weeks because now I can afford it. But that's what I didn't do, right? Like, thankfully, because I already was on this debt payoff journey, I prioritized paying off my debt because I was like, I don't want to have to owe anyone anything anymore. That's what's kept me underwater for so long. So all the extra money that I made, like, I went from living a 65K, not even, we were maybe living off like a 50K lifestyle when I was making 65K and putting the rest of the money towards debt. And then once I hit 100K, I was like, okay, now I have like 40K extra dollars to put towards my savings, to put towards my investments, and to put towards my debt. And then once I finally got rid of my debt, then I was like, okay, I could maybe treat myself more. That was my approach. I'm not saying that this is the right way to go about it, but I will say that when I became debt free, I felt like a different person. Like, I felt like a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. And I was like, wow, this is what it feels like to not have to worry about crazy bills every month, because my credit card bills were crazy. Like, I had a Victoria's Secret credit card. I had an Abercrombie credit card.
Oh my
I had
God.
like a Sephora.
So it was like shopping.
It was a lot of shopping, but it was also in college, I had to basically feed myself, you know, pay for my textbooks. I had to do a lot of things myself. So a lot of it was, you know, me trying to keep up with college lifestyle, friends. I also, when I started working, wanted to treat my parents. And so I would take them out to eat, and I would, try to pick up more stuff for them because they were already struggling.
Yeah.
And
even though you weren't necessarily at a place where you could do that.
Yeah.
Looking back, would you do that again specifically? Like, I know that helping your family is like essential for you. Like, that's something you want to do. But would you have maybe like waited maybe like a few years? What do you think about that time?
Yeah, looking back, I think I would have approached it way differently. I used to give my parents cash, and I used to, just like I said, unnecessarily take them out or spend a lot of money on them when I couldn't afford it. Now I can. So now I'm like, we go to a restaurant and we spend $400, and I'm like, oh, it's fine. Like, I could afford it. But back then I definitely couldn't afford it on my teacher salary. So I think that if I could go back, I would tell my younger self, do what you can, Viv. If you could just afford to help with the Con Edison bill of $100 a month, just take that on. Mm-hmm. If you could afford to pay for the subscriptions, pay for that out of your, checking account. But definitely, don't give people cash, because I think that's not going to solve anything. That was one thing I learned, is my parents are not the best at managing their money. And so they also had a lot of debt. They became debt-free. I helped them become debt-free too.
Wow. That's a big accomplishment.
It is, yeah. Because they had more debt than me. I think combined, they maybe had like $40K.
Wow.
Yeah. And they became debt-free last year. So I was so proud of them.
So now they're on their journey to build wealth?
Now they're on their investing journey. And I'm very proud of them, because that was not the norm. Like, everyone in my family, the norm was, oh, deudas, it's normal. Or, yeah, just not taking care of our money, the little that we had. Because it was kind of like, if we're barely making enough, so might as well enjoy it while we have it. That's the mentality that a lot of people have, is like, ¿pa qué voy a ahorrar? Right? It's like, me voy a morir. Like, might as well enjoy it now. But, now I think of it differently. I'm like, I want to be able to make the future generations, I want to make their lives easier. My niece, I have a niece now. Like, I don't want her to worry about college the way I did. I don't want her, I hope to build wealth so that my future family, my future nephews, nieces can come to me for anything.
Yeah, that's a very noble kind of way of thinking, and I love that. And they're lucky. They're very lucky. I've heard this idea about the first 100K and excuse me, and how important that is. And I wanted to ask you about it, what the first 100K means, because sometimes I'm wondering, is it in assets? Is it in savings? Is it in investments? Because all those three things, you can reach them at very different points. Mm-hmm. So what does the first 100K mean for you? And if you could explain it for the audience in general, why it matters.
Yeah, so for me, and I think for a lot of the personal finance community, it's 100K in investments, because once you hit 100K in investments, the compound interest just kind of does the work for you. Your money starts growing at a much faster pace. And that's just because, you have 6 figures of cash basically piling up and using itself to make more money for yourself. It's kind of like on autopilot. Also, people say, like, once you hit 100K in investments, you could stop investing. And within 30, 40, 50 years, that money easily becomes over $1 million. So I actually just hit 100K in investments a couple weeks ago, maybe like 2 months ago. I don't know. And honestly, it took me a really long time. So I'm about to be 30. And
you're still very young.
I'm still doing really well for my age, for my story. I'm doing extremely well. And just 2 years ago, I posted a a reel. I think it was 2 years ago, maybe last year. I posted a reel and I was like, can we normalize investing in small amounts? Because not everyone could afford to invest $1,000, $2,000 a month. Even $500 a month is a lot.
Yeah.
And when I started my journey, my investing journey, I wasn't investing that much money a month. I was investing $20 a month because that's all I could afford. And so
you were not maximizing your Roth or anything like that?
No. The first time I maxed out my Roth was maybe last year or 2 years ago.
No way.
Yeah. I even with the 100K salary, people think, oh, once you start making 100K, all your problems are solved. No, because especially if you start from negative, you're most likely using that money to now pay off debt, catch up with your savings, like figuring out what kind of life do I want to live? Like, what's my happy medium where I'm not struggling, but also like being nice to myself and taking myself out every once in a while because I've worked hard to get here. So even after the 100K, it took me a really long time to get to 100K in investments. I mean, it's been maybe it's almost 4 years.
Wow. Do you think you could get to 100K in investments before hitting 100K in salary?
100%. I think.
Okay, I have hope, guys. We have hope.
No, 100%. So this is the thing too. This is why I said like normalize investing in small amounts, because when I started posting more on social media, I saw a lot of people that were like, oh, I'm 25 and I hit 100K in investments, or like I'm 24 and I have 200K invested. Or like I'm 30 and I have $1 million invested. And I felt so behind because I was like, wait, what? Like I'm investing $20 a month. How am I supposed to get to 100K? So what I did is once I paid off my debt, once I had enough in savings, once I figured out, okay, this is what I need to be able to live the life I want to live, everything else is now going to investments. So now last year was the first year I maxed out my 401k, and that was $23,000. This year it's $23,500, I think, and I'm also on track to max it out. And it's also the first year that my husband is maxing out his 401k.
Wow.
He actually got to 100K without the 100K salary. He started investing as soon as he graduated from college. So when he was a teacher, he was maxing out his TDA, which is the equivalent to a 401k, because he lived at home, he had no debt, and his parents didn't depend on him. So because of that privilege, he was able to invest over 20K of his money 1 year out of college. And that money grew, and I think he hit 100K like maybe 2 years ago. He's maybe at 200K in investments now. Wow,
that's insane. Yeah. It just shows you what you were saying, the power of compound interest. And I was just thinking, my first paycheck, probably my first year out of college, when I was making like my engineering girl salary, after that year, I was like, where did that salary go? Because my initial offer was 69K. And I was like, I could not tell you where that went. Rent, groceries. Why do I feel like I earned nothing this entire year? It's crazy.
And did you invest any of that money? Did you put anything towards retirement?
I might have put maybe 10%, not even that, some percentage into like the 401k because they did the match. And it's one of those companies where you have to put in money, so they put in money, and their match was actually like pretty good. I think it was like 6% or something like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, which I thought was the standard, actually. I found out it's not. But just having that discipline to think about like investing right out of college, to me, that's very impressive, because what I have learned, I am proud and a little ashamed to say that it's been through the internet. And sometimes I say ashamed because there's a lot of people out there that say a lot of things. And if you're not careful and if you don't use critical thinking skills, you can end up making a bad investment.
Yeah. And it's happened. It's happened to me. Like when I started investing, I also started learning through the internet. And the way I started investing was through Robinhood. Somebody was like, talking about it online, and they were saying, here, invest in these stocks. This was during COVID.
Like stock picking?
Stock picking.
Okay.
And me, my brother, and my sister got into it, and we were like, oh, did you invest in, like, I don't know, random stocks? I was like, did you invest in Aqua? No. Did you invest in Snow? No. Like, oh, I'm putting $5 in, like, Leo. It's like random stuff that we've never heard of, that we just see people talking about online. And yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. Like I said, I kind of learned through trial and error. Thankfully, I met a lot of really amazing people when I started my finance journey, because I started my page. I met really incredible women that were teaching real good financial literacy lessons. And that's how I learned about investing, and through books as well. Through books, I maybe started seriously investing when I was 25 or 26.
Okay.
That was when I was like, okay.
I feel like that's a reasonable age. Like, and I say that meaning like, you know, when you're 25, 26, you've been getting a paycheck a few times, like a few years now, you're just like, okay, I need to actually see where my money's going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And well, I mean, I was prioritizing, you know, the debt payoff. Right. I was prioritizing my savings. And then I was like, okay, now I can finally invest. And again, I was investing in small amounts at first because I was still prioritizing the debt payoff, all of that stuff. But at least I was investing in a Roth IRA, and I was also not, instead of choosing individual stocks, I was like, okay, now I know what an ETF is. Now I know what an index fund is. Let me invest in low cost index funds.
Absolutely.
And, you know, at that point, I finally understood what an expense ratio was, you know, how diversification works. And thankfully, you know, I stayed consistent. And then once I started making even more money, so once I moved from the 100K job to 150K, that was when I was like, okay, now I can invest more. Now I can max out all accounts. I can max out my 401k. I can max out my Roth. I can help my parents more. So yeah, there's so many things that went into it, but it did take me a while to get to the 100K. I wish that I would have gotten there sooner. But yeah, it honestly just takes consistency, and time is your biggest flex. Like if you are younger, if you're in your early 20s and you start investing now, you're going to be set. Yeah. It doesn't matter how much you invest, but the fact that you start early and you do it consistently, and then once your income does increase, you're good.
You know, everything that we're talking about, the trial and the error, that's why it's important to get your information from reputable sources. And I mean, that also happened to me. Even after I knew what that low expense ratios were better because you get to keep more of your money. I'm sure people have heard of those apps or even those index funds that mimic the tradings of, let's say, a politician like Nancy Pelosi and stuff like that. Like I bought into one of those and I was like, oh, let's just see what happens. And I threw like $100 in that. And then the expense ratio was like 70%.
No way.
Yes. And I knew about the low expense ratio, how essential that was, but I was just it was kind of like in the heat of the moment. And I was like, let's see what happens. And then I realized, oh, wait, like the only person making money here is the person managing the index fund. And, you know, the money's still there. It's like, okay, like, you know, I just kind of wasted $100, which is a privilege to say, I'm just going to let that go. It truly is. But now I know better. And it's, you still keep learning, you know, as you go.
Yeah. And I will say that investing, you know, well, first of all, this isn't financial advice. We're just talking about our experiences with investing. Always do your research. And second of all, investing, there's always naturally risk involved. So you always have to figure out how much risk you're comfortable with and then decide like how you want to allocate your investments. For me, I am like I'm comfortable with more risk, especially that I'm young. So a lot of my portfolio is just straight up S&P 500 or like VTI, VU, SPY, low expense ratios as well for all of those. And yeah, I kind of just put that on autopilot. It gets reinvested. And then more recently, I'm like, okay, I should probably rebalance my portfolio and add something a little bit less risky, like bonds. So, and international ETFs as well. So I'm like, okay, like now that I'm hitting the 30s mark, let me rethink how comfortable I am with risk. And so what a lot of people do is they invest in something called a target date fund.
Yeah.
And a target date fund is already sort of diversified for you. So there's like bonds, stocks, REITs, like, you know, all types of investments, and it's managed by somebody. And the expense ratio for those are a little bit higher, but it's just kind of like a buy it once and forget about it until you retire. And so that's what a lot of people choose to do because it's just easier. You don't have to think about like rebalancing your own portfolio. They do it for you. But for me, it's been more of the strategy that I mentioned earlier. And so I kind of manage my own portfolio that way. But I have a lot of learning still to do. So,
I mean, you already know so much, and I would love for you to share what would be your top 3 maybe one-liner tips for people to get started. Let's start from somebody who's like, okay, I'm gonna graduate in May, and I want to make sure that I set myself up to start building wealth and putting my money to work.
the first thing is just making sure you have an emergency fund. So even before investing, I would say that's the priority, is having at least $1,000 in savings, because you never know what could happen. And then eventually, working your way up to 3 to 6 months of expenses in a high yield savings account. This is going to give you so much peace of mind, because literally if you get laid off or if something happens, bad breakup, you have to move out, whatever, you're going to be okay. You're going to feel comfortable with figuring out what happens next in your life, because you have that financial safety net that you built for yourself. So you should feel even more proud that you're doing that for you. You're looking out for yourself. That's number one. Number two is opening up a Roth IRA. A Roth IRA is a tax advantage retirement account, and it is my favorite account because it's basically available for people that work a job and want to contribute to an account that they can open themselves. And so after you get paid, you would take, any money that you have left over, any money you want to put into investments, put it into your Roth IRA yourself, and then invest that money. And any money that you put in there and that gets invested and that grows, you can then withdraw it at retirement tax-free, meaning you don't have to pay any money in taxes, which is such a blessing. Because imagine if you have like $1 million in your Roth at 65, at 70, and you could just literally take that out and not have to pay taxes.
Yeah, I feel like Roths, at least when I first started researching about this, don't get advertised as much as a regular IRA. And it doesn't make sense to me, because having your money grow tax-free, it's a compounding effect versus with the IRA, then you're paying like such a high amount in taxes, right? Is that how it works?
So the reason why I think that it's not marketed as much is because with a Roth IRA, you're only eligible for a Roth IRA if you make under a certain amount. Mm-hmm. So it's good for like people that are lower income, middle income, like lower end of the high income. And versus an IRA is for people who make a lot more money. So people that make a lot more money, because they make a lot more money, they're able to invest more, and they're able to, take advantage of different types of accounts. And so I think that's part of the reason. I also think with a Roth IRA, these accounts are free, by the way. You can open these accounts with Vanguard, with Fidelity, with Charles Schwab. Those are like the top 3 I would recommend using. Another thing with the Roth IRA is if you start early in your career using that account, it benefits you so much, because hopefully you're going to increase your income over time, right? And one day you're not going to be eligible for a Roth IRA. I mean, there's a backdoor Roth, but for the purpose of this little session, right? You're not going to be eligible for the Roth IRA, so might as well take advantage of it now, right? You're paying the lowest amount of taxes that you'll ever pay in your life. So put that money to work. Like if you're in a 20% or 19% tax bracket, 22% tax bracket, you're never going to be in that tax bracket again if you keep making more money. So take advantage that you're getting taxed at a low amount, put that money towards investments, and then watch it grow. Because if you open a Roth IRA, like once you're making 120K, you kind of missed out on on you getting taxed at a 50K salary versus 120K salary where you're getting taxed way more. So that's like the big tax advantage there. And then the last thing I was going to say is take advantage of the company match, which you mentioned earlier. A lot of companies will match whatever you're putting in. So if they say we're going to match 3% of your salary, that means if you make 100K, if you put in $3,000, they put in $3,000. That's free money. That's basically you're getting paid an extra 3K a year. Honestly, I would consider
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, I would consider it as even more. Like they're putting 3K a year towards your investments that are going to grow. That 3K is going to turn into 30K one day.
Yeah.
So take advantage of that.
That is a nice thing about, I love that that's a standard benefit. At least I would dare to say that's a pretty standard benefit. So I know you've developed something and I would love for you to talk about it. You have a budgeting template and I'm surprised to include budgeting as the step one.
Well, yeah, I think this is what I tell people all the time. I'm like, I get it, right? It's hard to budget when you're struggling. You're living paycheck to paycheck, you're in debt. All the money that you make, all the money you bring in isn't even covering your expenses, let alone the debt payoff payments that you have and everything else on your plate. Like budgeting isn't really going to help that much, right? The thing that's going to help the most is like resources and increasing your income. But like, let's say, you're fresh out of college, like you said, you're making 65, 70K, you have 60K in student loan debt, which is hopefully low interest debt. Maybe you have a little bit of credit card debt. You're making enough, right? You're making enough to live okay. I think budgeting is like the number one step that you should take in that case, because it's like you might be starting at negative, but like you can get to the zero very quickly once you start budgeting. And you could get to the positive very, very quickly if you care for the money that you're budgeting for. So for me, budgeting obviously like changed my life. That's why I made a template, because I used to be a shopaholic. I used to, overspend. I didn't know where my money was going every month. And I think that seeing it, writing down every single transaction, really, and categorizing it and being like, oh, this is how much I spent on shopping last month.
It's very painful when you see it.
It's painful, but it's also liberating, because it's like painful at the beginning when you see, oh my God, I spent $300 on coffee last month.
Oh my gosh.
Why did I buy coffee every single day? And damn, that adds up. But it's like, it helps you reflect and think about, well, can I afford $300 on coffee every month? Well, it says here that I can. Like I have enough, like I have money left over every month. So now you decide, okay, do you want to continue to spend $300 on coffee every month? Or do I want to put $150? I'll cut my coffee intake in half, $150, put that towards my student loan debt. What's going to make me happier? Or what's going to make me feel better in the long term? And then I think that's the power of budgeting, is like, okay, now I know like where I'm going, right? Like I already saw where I went. I learned from that. And now I could decide, okay, this is where I want to go.
Yeah. I started using your template and I was just very impressed at all the different, like how personal you can make it. And I know you included a note of like, you can add emojis. And I was like, it's a template. It's like a finance. Why would I? And then I did. And I was like, oh, wait, this is like fun. And I have created my own templates over the years, and I end up just getting confused or it's not like great. I want to learn more about like what led you, because you used to have a free, and you still do, you have a free template for people to use, but now you have like an upgraded paid version. What makes this one different and like maybe more special? Maybe if you can walk us through like the process of even creating one.
Yeah. So this one is way more special, I would say, because I still wanted to keep it simple. So it's very simple. I think it's easy to use, straightforward. But it allows you to record everything. So in my first budget template, it was very simple. It was basically 4 boxes, and it's your income box, fixed expenses, variable expenses, and then just a overview box of how much money came in, how much money went out, your budgeted versus your actual. And I always tell people, before you spend your money, plan for it. Because what a lot of people do, and my husband used to do this, is you get paid and then you use that money to pay your credit card bill. So basically you use that money to pay for what you spent, in the previous month. And then all your money's gone. I'm like, well, that's kind of backwards to me. I would rather start at zero, right? I have nothing to worry about. I get paid. And then I'm like, okay, these $3,000 that just came in, I'm going to do this with them. This is how I'm going to plan. This is how I'm going to allocate the $3,000. And then as you start spending, tracking that in your budget template, and then seeing the results, like, oh, kind of like a game, like, oh, did I stick to what I said I was going to do? Like, did I stick to the $150 budget that I set for myself for coffee? Yeah, I did. Or maybe I went over a little bit, or maybe, yeah, I did a good job. I only spent $100. Like, I think I could continue this, So that's one of the main differences is like the boxes, right? It was only 4, and it was very hard to, I would say, like, see the details in that one, because it was kind of like,
it was just kind of like money in, money out. This is what you can spend.
Yeah. And it was more of like buckets of things like shopping, versus the new one is you can separate it by person. So if you're budgeting with somebody else, like me and my husband, I could give myself a shopping budget. I could give him a shopping budget. I could see how much money he brought in versus how much money I brought in. I could also tag by date. So let's just say, I'm making my budget for just 1 week, right? Because I get paid every week. So the new budget template allows you to save, or allows you to budget on your timeline. So if you want to budget by week, if you want to budget every 2 weeks, if you want to budget every month, you can do that because everything is tagged to dates. And it also helps you remember what you spent money on. So like when you're looking at your credit card bill, sometimes you're like, what is this? Right? You're like, oh wait, I spent
like,
20.
There's no way I spent $800 this month. Like, they're lying.
Yeah. And like, wait, I spent $22 at something called knit. What's knit, right? Yeah. So this new template allows you to, input your transactions from your credit card bill, tag them to the credit card that you charged, because with credit cards, sometimes we use multiple. So It's good to know, okay, on the Sapphire card, I spent $500. On the Preferred, I spent $300. On the bill, I spent $1,000. And so this template tells you between this date and this date, this is how much you put on this credit card. You put $800 on this credit card. So it's easy for me to then go back at the end of the period that I'm budgeting for. Okay, I spent $800 on the Sapphire. I'm going to pay the $800 off. So that's like another pro of the new template. And I think lastly, it's just like very aesthetically beautiful. I put a lot of work into the colors, the style, the emojis, like you said, like making it feel like it's fun to budget and not a chore, not scary.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest hurdle to get over. Seeing it as something that's going to help you in the future and not as a chore. It's definitely still a little bit of a chore for me. But, practice makes perfect, right?
Yeah, and I think this is a great... personally, like, I love budgeting, right? But I think that some people there's two types of people. I think there's people that struggle with budgeting, like they don't like to do it, so they just use the apps, right? They pay a subscription every month. They pay $10-15 every month to get an automated budget through one of the apps. I don't think that's helpful because it doesn't really help you change your spending habits. You're kind of like not really doing it. With my template, it's $8 and you just buy it one time and you can use it forever. You have access forever. With this template, you actually have to sit down, go through your transactions and, actually reflect on them one by one. So I think it puts you maybe in an uncomfortable position at first, right? Because you're like, oh my God, like I spent this, I spent this, I spent this. But like once you start doing it more and more, I think it's like, oh, like I could get the hang of this, or like I already know how much I'm going to spend. So it gets easier over time. And then hopefully one day you don't even need a budget. Like some people, they literally, because they already have this sort of like system in place, they just automate everything. So they're like, okay, 20% is going to my investments. This is automatically going to my Roth IRA. 10% is automatically going to savings. And the rest, like I could spend on whatever I want. And they don't overspend because they already, have been practicing the sticking to their budget.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think doing it yourself really like shows you think you know what you're spending your money on, but you really don't. I have found that out. And just getting out of that habit of I'm just going to pay off my credit card. Honestly, what you just said about your paycheck hits and you're just paying off the debt from the debit card. And yeah, you have like no money left. I can so relate to that. And so that's definitely something I'm trying to change.
Yeah, that's what my husband used to do. And I'm like, you're doing it wrong.
It
so
is
we
backwards.
actually, yeah, we got into a couple arguments over that, how we were going to do that. And he wanted to continue doing that. And I was like, no way, I'm not doing it that way. I like to start, I like the money that comes into my bank account for me to tell it what to do, not for my credit cards to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Right? Like I want to make the decisions.
Yeah, and I think a big thing is also not everything is about retirement. Like I don't want to enjoy all my money when I'm 60. I also want to enjoy in moderation what I'm doing right now. So finding that balance, it's hard, but it's definitely essential too. I was going to ask you how much how do I want to ask this question? So you've come so far, and I hope that you acknowledge yourself for doing that. Like, you hit that huge milestone of 100K investments. You are well into six-figure job. You're such a hard worker. How much of that do you think comes from being the child of immigrants?
All of it, honestly, because we don't have anything handed to us, as first gens, we have to kind of figure it out on our own. And a lot of the times, I talk about this on my page, we have to parent our parents. Like I have felt like the third parent since I was young. I had to take care of my siblings. I had to teach them. I had to translate for my parents. My mom, the other day, I had to take her to her jury duty. And yeah, like I feel like it's my duty to do more in life, but not just because of me, because of them, because they've worked so hard to be able to give me these opportunities. And I know it's a choice for me to do all these things. I know I don't have to. We don't owe our parents anything. But personally, knowing the stories that I know about my parents, about my mom, they literally risked their lives to come here. It's just, they've given me the best life that they could give me. So I'm not going to take it for granted. I'm always going to appreciate it. And I'm going to make the most out of it.
That's so beautiful. How do you deal with those days where maybe you feel guilt? Or how do you deal with the mental health part of the unresolved feelings of, taking on big responsibilities when you were little and feeling like that third parent? Because that doesn't just disappear one day. How do you deal with those emotions?
I think now I'm getting better at dealing with them because I'm in therapy. Therapy has helped a lot. And then also establishing my boundaries. I've been doing that more and more. I used to feel really guilty about that. But now I feel comfortable. If I don't feel like mentally I want to socialize with my family, I don't. I used to see my parents very, very often. And right now I'm in a phase of my life where I'm really, really busy. And so I'm prioritizing myself and my mental health. And so they respect that. They know that I'm not going to go and visit them every weekend. They know that I will make time for them when I can. I make time for them a lot, but I think it's boundaries. I think it's you figuring out what the right balance is for you and making sure that when you're helping other people, that it's because you genuinely want to help them, not because you're forced to. And sometimes I can't help my parents and I do feel bad, but it's good for them because they kind of have to figure out how to do things themselves. And they also have my brother and my sister that they could also rely on. So it doesn't all have to fall on you.
100%. All right. So now I have a few fun questions for you. These are like, you have to tell me what you prefer. El Chavo del Ocho or Drake and Josh?
Oh, that's a good one because I used to love Drake and Josh as a kid. Honestly, I'm going to go with Drake and Josh on this one.
That's okay. Honestly, I would too. Mana or Coldplay?
Mana, for sure, yeah. I love Coldplay, though. I do love Coldplay, but Mana is like classic.
If you can share with us a saying that your parents always say.
Well, I'll share a saying that my grandpa always says, el respeto al derecho ajeno es la paz. And yeah, I wrote that on my graduation cap. It's basically like, when you respect traditions, when you respect your elders, when you respect, your ancestors, the people that came before you, like peace is always going to be there, So, and I'm a very like peaceful person. I want everybody to just be on good terms. I want there to be world peace, essentially. And so I always carry that with me. I think that, especially in today's world, there's a lot of disrespect happening. And I think we just need to be kinder to each other.
I agree. In the world where you can choose to be anything, choose kindness. And to finish up this wonderful episode, if you could leave us with something you wish you had heard growing up.
Be ambitious, stay humble. It's not selfish to be ambitious. Doesn't make you a bad person to want more. And why not? Why not you? But always remember where you came from and remember your roots and honor them and be grateful and be humble for everything that you have.
I love it. Thank you so much, Viv. Thank you for tuning in today. Follow us on Instagram and YouTube at doce.podcast. That's DOCE.podcast. Leave us a review on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. This was Doce, the podcast for immigrants by immigrants.